In September of 2000, a drawn-out day at Disneyland for Brandon Zucker and his family was reaching a conclusion when the cheerful participants concluded they would go on one final ride to adjust the day. The ride they settled on was the Roger Bunny animation turn, which appeared 6 years sooner in January of 1994. The ride depends on the Foundation grant-winning hit film Who Outlined Roger Hare and was a fan number 1 in the recreation area. At the time, the actual ride was a crisscrossing taxi loaded up with underhanded weasels and different shots. The riders would need to board a yellow taxi, which situated 2 individuals. The taxis would then leave the stacking region once the traffic signal had become green, and visitors would race around Tauntown as their taxi would turn 360 degrees. The Zuckers, who lived in Gulch region in northern Los Angeles, had shown up at the recreation area at around 11 a.m. It was soon after 10 p.m. when Brandon, who was wearing sneakers and Mickey Mouse ears, hopped into the taxi with his 6-year-old sibling Nicholas and his mom Victoria, who assumed command over the wheel. Brandon was sat close to the opening on the traveler side entryway. Brandon's dad, David. Also, Grandma Quality Curland followed them and was sat in the vehicle behind. Similarly, as before, the traffic signal in the load-in region became green, and the family were off unbeknown of the loathsomeness that was going to continue. Inside the space of minutes, everything went awry for after. Brandon's mom bowed down to pick something up. Brandon dropped out of the taxi. As per his dad, who saw this from behind, Brandon didn't have sufficient opportunity to shout for help. Everything occurred so rapidly. His dad then, at that point, hollered, "Brandon dropped out. Brandon dropped out of the vehicle. He's under the vehicle. Get him out." His shouts for help were before long joined by the shouts of his significant other. Brandon was currently caught and nailed down under the yellow taxi. David surged out of his moving carriage, desperately attempting to stop the vehicle, which hauled the young person around 10 feet. Prior to halting in the Bonner China shop part of the ride, he attempted to take the vehicle off of Brandon, yet it wouldn't move. As of now, Brandon was not moving. He was caught between the middle bar and the vehicle's right side. His grandma delicately stroked the little kid's hand, endeavoring to comfort him, yet he stayed oblivious, with his hands shaking. As of now, the ride chaperone realized something was off base and turned down the ride. Brandon's dad then rushed to him and shouted at the man, "My kid is stuck under the vehicle. Assist me." Subsequent to squeezing the crisis with securing on the control board, he purportedly ran with David to the little child and attempted to help him, while another was asked to call 911. The lights then, at that point, came on and the ride was emptied anyway, as indicated by witnesses Allison Fields and her better half. Straight to the point, Leon. They saw David arguing for help, and help. The ride administrator initially went with David, however, at that point returned, which provoked him to return briefly. Time as per Fields, various men moved to a framework, yet Disneyland representatives cautioned them to stay back. David returned for a 3rd time frame, and ride administrators just overlooked him. After the 3rd time, visitors disregarded Disneyland authorities, and roughly 10 individuals, including Leon and his significant other, bounced the boundaries to help the kid. Allison guaranteed that she checked for a heartbeat, yet she was unable to find one. The 10 individuals endeavored to take the taxi off of Brandon, yet were fruitless, and Brandon stayed caught. As you can envision, the scene was totally terrible as Brandon's mom shouted, "Not my child, please God, everything except my child," straightforward, and Allison then left the scene as it was excessively upsetting for the pair. Another observer expressed that it took Disneyland excessively lengthy to illuminate the police. Once the call was made, the police showed up in the span of 3 minutes, with firemen going along with them a moment later. The firemen then utilized a jack to liberate the kid from the ride, where Disney salvage staff did mouth-to-mouth on the kid until the paramedics took over. Inexplicably, paramedics figured out how to get a heartbeat. As of now, Braun was blue from the absence of oxygen and couldn't inhale on his own. He was then moved to UC Clinical Focus, where he went through a medical procedure for 2 hours. and despite the fact that Brandon made do. The Zucker's family bad dream was a long way from being done. Brandon had a cracked stomach, liver, and spleen among other major inner wounds. When the ride squashed Brandon, he went into heart failure and supported mind harm. After the occurrence, he couldn't walk or talk and spent over a month in a medication prompted extreme lethargies. The calamity was the state's division of word-related well-being and well-being's most memorable huge examination under a regulation overseeing event congregations. The law made it required for parks to report critical wounds in mishaps and furthermore enabled the state to examine and arrange fixes. The state decided that Disneyland staff neglected to appropriately stack Brandon onto the ride with the littlest youngster farthest from the cutout entryway, and that the lap bar was not completely brought down. It likewise requested a sensor-prepared monitor around the lower part of every vehicle, as well as other significant well-being changes in accordance with the ride. Disneyland was then legitimately sued by the Zuckers, who agreed to an obscure aggregate to help pay for his costly clinical treatment. Brandon then spent the following 8 years of his life all through clinics. His mom expressed he struggled with this for a considerable length of time, all through the medical clinic, and he battled for quite a while. We did each sort of treatment and all that we might actually accomplish for him in the 8 years. He just got worn out, yet he actually provided us with a ton of affection and we gave it to him tragically. Brandon's well-being proceeded to decline, and he kicked the bucket in his mom's arms at Youngsters Emergency Clinic of Orange area on the 26th of January 2009. He was just 13 years old after his passing. His mom expressed each time he was jabbed and goaded, "One more piece was removed from my heart. I've been lamenting for quite a long time. He's running and playing with every one of his legs and feet on his bike. Up in paradise, his dad and I provided him with the best personal satisfaction that we could. He was an extraordinary child, and we love him so much. And we will miss him enormously." Brandon today is made due by his senior sibling, his mom and his dad, and was subsequently asked at the Pacific View Commemoration Park in Orange Province, California. Disney representative Susie Brown put out an announcement saying, "We are disheartened to learn of the death of Brandon Zucker. Our considerations and petitions to God are with his family at this troublesome time."